Okay, alright, so what you can see here is I've added a piece of balsa material to the face of the dummy motor that goes into the cowling. See, I've got it marked, the top, and there's the top of the cowling there, so it should line up. We'll place it in here. Again, it's going to be glued in. We use the liquid cement, Tamiya liquid cement, to glue that in, and then we'll follow that up with some of the super glue. Just lay a bead of super glue around the inside, around here, from the inside. Anyway, I just wanted to show you how we're going to get this. So I just cut a circle of the, I guess that's probably 1/4 inch thick balsa, and all I want to do is finish this radius out. I don't want it to be sawed off at the face there, and then just have the thrust bearing and prop. I want the thrust bearing to come, excuse me, excuse me, thrust bearing to come out, you know, a little bit further out. And again, this just needed to be finished off. It was kind of a mesa there, and I'd rather have it be rounded off, more or less to match the profile of the Williams Brothers motor. You can see how this is finished off, so that, you know, when I interchange the two, it'll still sort of resemble, this will sort of resemble this a little more than it did when it was flat. So anyway, we just stuck that in there. Now we're just going to sand it to match the profile of the plastic, hopefully not get too many scratches in it, and then after that we'll come by with the finer grit sandpaper. So all we're doing is holding this at an angle similar to what this angle is here, so you see that, and then sanding the wood just at that angle, and we should end up with something more or less dome shaped and round, contoured to match the existing plastic profile. Again, this is a really rough sandpaper because we're carving and shaping, not finish sanding, but establishing the shape. That's the difference when you're establishing the shape or shaping versus prepping for paint. It's a lot rougher. And we could probably switch it up now. This cold just won't let me go. It's like a constant thing. I don't know how long it's been, since Christmas anyway. It's a long time. Way too long for a cold. Regardless, there we go. So we want that shape to match as closely as possible. Crap. Yeah, we don't want to gouge the plastic at all. We want to keep that smooth. Ideally, this transition would be non-existent between the plastic and the wood, but that's a lot to hope for. I think what we'll end up with is a line you can see, but even that's, you know, okay. And we'll use a little bit of putty to try and even hide that. I really would like a transition that can't be visible, that's not visible. But again, that's a lot to hope for. A situation like this, we'll just do the best we can and see how it comes out. I like a little bit of filler and two coats of paint. 2 coats of paint, including the surface primer we're going to be putting on here. A little bit of putty and filler or what have you. Might just be enough to hide it completely. So we want to get a good grip on this. I don't want to crush this plastic or split it anywhere. You see I cut away between the cylinders. I want to be able to see a little bit to the firewall, which again will be black or blackened. This will be painted the same color, NATO black. And the push rods will be applied, as well as ignition wiring that I'll put in to simulate, well, the simulation of ignition wiring. And it'll be the same, it'll match the Williams Brothers detailing as closely as I can, so that regardless whether the cowling and this is on or the Williams Brothers are mounted, the motor will look similar. The motors will look similar to each other. It's alright if they look a little different, but the idea is to try and capture the same look. And get this rounded and dome shaped as best we can using the sandpaper. This method that we're doing. You see it, we're still working on the wing, but we can take up small projects in between to kind of break up the routine or the repetition of that infill work. And it's nice to have different tasks mixing together so you don't get too I don't know, bored or you know, bogged down in the repetition. So we're getting pretty close here. Now we'll come, instead of sanding down off of the wood, we'll start sanding up off of the plastic to get that continuous flow to the shape of our nose cover here. It's just a slight difference in the motion, but it makes a big difference in the finish. From sanding down to sanding up now. Plus I put a few little scratches into the plastic when I was using the heavier grade sandpaper. This is, I want to say this is 80 grit, and this is 220. So that's not too bad. We're getting the dome shape we want. We're getting close to a smooth transition. Again, it's, you know, there's going to be a visible line here. It's not going to be 100% smooth, but then that's what the filler and surface prep products and the sandpaper we're attempting to achieve. I think we took care of some of the deeper scratches I put in the plastic at the same time. Looks like those are pretty much gone. I don't want any tearing look here either. See how it looks a little torn off there with the balsa? I want to eliminate that. And then we're just going to kind of finish off this roundness effect. And what I'll do, once I get this shape the way I want it, we will sand a flat spot into the nose that's the same diameter as the thrust bearing. So it'll be flat, but at the same diameter as the black thrust bearing. And then we're going to drill through it to accept the thrust bearing. And that, the dome of the thrust bearing will finish off the shape entirely. Let me see if I have a thrust bearing here. I can show you. I got this one. So the thrust bearing is this piece, and what we're going to do is flatten this off to match this diameter, and then drill this through so it inserts all the way flush, and then between them we should have a nice smooth appearance to the face of this engine. That's the plan anyway. We'll see how it rolls out. The other thing I could do is I could, you know, and I might even do that, is omit the thrust bearing here, since that's an extra step. Just smooth this out, drill the smaller hole for just the shaft, and then slide a bit of aluminum tubing to replicate a prop shaft behind the propeller. So between the prop and this would be that just a short, maybe an 1/8 inch long shaft of aluminum tubing hiding the piano wire shaft. And it's probably, I think that's more in line with what I want to do. The other step is just kind of extra. Since the propellers are going to be kind of permanently installed in each of these, in other words, I'm going to just install it and just remove the cowling entirely and put this motor on with its own prop. It just means I'll be making 2 propellers along with the 2 motors, but that's, you know, kind of thought I might end up doing that anyway, rather than having one prop that I could pluck out of one and stick in the other. Making propellers now isn't the alchemy that it used to be. When I first started doing this, I had no idea how to make propellers. At least not not ones that were to scale and looked, you know, didn't detract from the appearance of the airplane. You know, my first attempts were, you know, horrible. They didn't look anything like a scale prop, but I think I've gotten better at it. At least I hope so. Ultimately, that judgment is yours and not mine, the viewer. But I think we got a little better at it. As I say, I hope so. Alright, we're just going to finish kind of making sure this is centered and comes to a proper peak in the right spot without being, you know, looking warbled. Anyway, still got a little ways to go, but that's a lot better than that plateau there. Get rid of that tearaway edge. That looked a little smoother. We'll be right where we want to be. But I think we're close. Now I wanted to put this on camera. I have a tendency to do a lot of the stuff I do off camera and then come back and just talk about it. And that kind of, and the whole idea of this is that people can watch and see, you know, those who are interested anyway, can watch and see how it's done, not just hear me talk about it and show the before and after pictures. Now, this is how the sausage is made. Sometimes it isn't pretty. One of the reasons that I get away from this is that I start thinking about stuff and concentrating on how, you know, wondering how to go about it. And as I'm doing that, I might actually pick up the parts and start working away at it. And before I realize that I haven't turned the camera on, I'm done. I've finished. That's part of the reason why. And the other is that the camera can be a distraction. I'm thinking more about the camera and that aspect of things than what I'm actually working on with my hands. And that's a problem. So the two issues combined are what lead me to sometimes forget to photograph or journalize like the video what I'm doing, the work. And it should be more about this stuff than my jibber jabber. At least that's my point of view. I don't know what yours is. But anyway, here we go. We're getting, again, we got a little bit of a tearaway look here and there. But I think when I use a little bit of filler, which I should probably do now, if you look at it, you know, from the side like this, you can see that that's exactly what we're looking, kind of exactly what we're looking for, right? We want to match this profile. We didn't want this just to be sawed off flat where it was. That didn't look right. And have a propeller shaft just sticking out of that dime-shaped flat spot. Now it'll look a little better. It'll look a little more similar when I switch them out. At least that's the hope. Let's see. Match the top to the top. That's here. Get in there. Oops, not too far. Okay. There. So from the edge on. Oh, she fell out. There we go. From the edge on, it looks a little better. And again, like I said, I'll be putting the push rods in, simulating a wiring harness, and then, you know, it should look pretty good. After this is glued in, the motor is glued into the cowling, and everything is dry, we'll come back around here and sand this lip. You can see it's a little lippy here and there. So we'll just, once it's all glued up, we'll sand that and make that a smooth transition all the way around. That can be done with a little bit of filler also, just a touch of wet filler, and then when that dries, we'll sand that off. All the scratches are gone from the dome, from the heavy sandpaper. You know, the little scratches I put in the face of the engine block. And then a little bit of putty here will clean up these edges, make it transition a little smoother. And then an overall coating of the sand and seal to kind of harden it. And then a light 400 grit sanding of that to polish. That'll be our paint prep, and then we'll be done with that. All right. So I just wanted to show you how we do that.